So here is my presentation on motivation and exercise adherence. So here is the first scenario of the assignment, so click pause to read it if you want. So now we move on to motivation. So what is the definition of motivation? Well, in 1986, a psychologist by the name of Gill defined the term motivation as a drive to fulfill a need. Today, it is defined as the process that initiates, guides, and maintains goal-orientated behaviors. So here are some characteristics of motivation. So there are two branches of motivation, and they are intensity of behavior and direction of behavior. Intensity of behavior is associated with the degree of emotional energy that is experienced in different moments by an individual. This branch of motivation will also determine the direction of that person's behavior. For example, because John was always enjoying swimming since being at a young age, he decided to go in the direction of continuing swimming during GCSE levels. The other branch of motivation is the direction of the behavior. This simply means where this type of behavior will lead to. For example, John's behavior of enjoyment during swimming lessons emotionally drove him to partake in GCSE swimming lessons. When it comes to motivation, there are two types, and they are intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So, what is intrinsic motivation? This is the type of motivation that makes the individual to partake in that certain activity due to the interest the individual has towards it. This type of for intrinsic motivation, there are some rewards that are awarded which will satisfy the participants. Examples of intrinsic rewards can be satisfaction, enjoyment of the activity, or just a sense of pride. This type of motivation is strongly related back to John due to the scenario mentioning that he thrived during his swimming lessons, meaning he did swimming because he enjoyed it. The sense of pride due to surpassing another level is another reason why John's type of motivation is intrinsic, because in the scenario it mentions that John was very proud of his 25-meter and 50-meter swimming certificates. The other type of motivation is extrinsic motivation. This is the type of motivation that makes the individual to partake in that certain activity due to the motivation of wanting something in return for all their efforts. That so-called something can be a reward, like money or a trophy or reinforcement. So this can be a positive feedback. This type of motivation was not related to John when he was younger, because the vocabulary that was used to describe John's interest in swimming when he was younger showed that John genuinely enjoyed partaking in swimming. However, when he did swimming at GCSE, it said that John started to bunk swimming lessons as a result of his grades. This showed that the negative feedback made John lose interest in swimming because he was hoping for better grades. So what are the factors that affect motivation? There are some factors that affect motivation, and they are leader, family and peers, physical environment, and personality. The factors that affected John's motivation were the peers factor and the physical environment factor. The peers factor is associated with who John is surrounded by, and in the scenario it mentions that John was crowded with loud, domineering boys, and this can affect his motivation badly. The physical environmental factor is associated with the facilities that John is using. In the scenario, it describes the change rooms that John is using are dirty, meaning this would also affect his motivation badly due to wanting to be in a clean environment. Now we move on to the theories of motivation. So there are three theories of motivation, and they are achievement motivation, need achievement motivation, attribution theory, and achievement goal theory. So we'll start off with the need achievement motivation theory, and they are the top two pictures up on the screen. This theory was proposed by a psychologist named Atkinson in 1964. He claimed that there were two reasons for people to be motivated, and those reasons were either motivated to succeed or motivated to avoid failure. In 1986, Gill tried developing this theory by stating that a person who has high levels of achievement motivation would have a tendency to strive for success, persist in the face of failure, and experience pride in accomplishments. If levels of motive to achieve success and levels of probability of success are high, then that'll predict a high level of performance from the performer. Ways in which you can improve the need to achieve factor can be positive feedback, create realistic and achievable goals, ensure the tasks are challenging, and to ensure your probability of success is good. Ways in which you can reduce the need to avoid failure factor can be reducing punishments, which will lower worry about failure, focus the negative feedback on effort rather than ability, and to minimize situations where defeat will be the most likely scenario. At the stage where John is doing GCSE swimming, his motivation is not to fail, which in other words is just get the best grades. And the fact he hasn't got the grades he wants, he has lost his motivation. Another theory is the attribution theory of motivation. In 1982, a psychologist named Weiner created the attribution theory of motivation. This theory supports the fact that people look for explanations or causes that can be attributed to their own success or failure. There are three main categories of attributes for explaining success or failure, and they are stability, locus of causality, and locus of control. The other theory is the achievement goal theory of motivation. In 2001, two psychologists by the names of Duda and Hall created a theory of motivation and named it the achievement goal theory. This theory looks at what success and failure means to certain individuals. There are two components of this theory, and they are the ego outcome goal orientation and the task goal orientation. So we'll explain each component one by one. So the ego outcome goal orientation. This component is related to individuals who compare themselves with others just to look like they have superior abilities in comparison to others. Some characteristics of someone who does fall into this component can be that they choose tasks that where success is certain but the challenge is less. They reduce effort when failing. They believe success is gained through personal abilities and cheating, and they are more likely to experience anxiety in competition. A part of me feels like John may fall into this component because he immediately dropped out of swimming lessons at GCSE when he saw his grades were average. This shows that he is someone who is afraid of failing. The other component of this theory is the task goal orientation. This component is related to individuals that compare themselves with their past self in order to improve personal skills and performance. Some characteristics of someone who does fall into this category can be that they choose challenging tasks where success is not certain, puts in higher effort when failing, believes that success is gained through hard work and cooperation, and they are less likely to experience anxiety in competition. Now, another thing to take into consideration is the motivational climate. The motivational climate is the psychological environment that the coaches create by designing sessions which provide instructions and feedback that will help motivate the athletes in training and competition. There are two components that compose the motivational climate, and they are the mastery climate and the performance climate. The mastery climate is the climate type within the team that will encourage the team during challenging goals. The individuals within the team will only want to improve by reflecting back at their previous abilities, and they encourage mastery orientation. Performance climate is the climate type within the team that will only focus on the outcome. They encourage ego orientation, and they are dependent on others when it comes to performance. This basically means, depending on how everyone performs, that individual will see it as success no matter how they performed themselves. Factors that can affect motivational climate are leader behavior. This can be the coach, the environment, this can be the weather, and influences of others in the environment. This can be the attitude of others towards that individual. So here is the second scenario, so pause if you would like to see this. So now we move on to exercise adherence. There are 4 psychological categories that affect people in exercise environments, and they are reasons why people exercise, reasons for not exercising, determinants of exercise adherence, and behavior change models. So we're going to go over determinants of exercise adherence first. So this category refers to what can influence the commitment of a person towards exercise. There are 3 factors that can influence the commitment of a person towards exercise, and they are personal factors, environmental factors, and activity-related factors. For personal factors, John was influenced not to partake in swimming lessons due to his previous experiences at GCSE levels, where he didn't get the assessment grades he wanted. Now, this will come under the behaviours category of personal factors. The environmental factors that influenced John to stop swimming were the dirty changing facilities. Now, this would come under the physical factors from the environmental category. And the fact he wasn't in a calm and passive environment. This will come under the social factors of the environmental category. The activity-related factors that influence John to stop swimming was of the racing during swimming practical lessons at GCSE. Now, this would come under the individuals activities factor of the environmental category. And this was another reason for John to stop swimming, because it had clearly stated in the first scenario that John was not fast at swimming. This could have brought down his confidence levels and will have crumbled any sort of motivation that he previously had. So now we move on to the behavior change models. So over the years, psychologists have created models to show how behaviors can change in relations to exercise, and examples of these models are the trans-theoretical model and the health belief model. Now here is an image of the trans-theoretical model and the bullet points there. So what is the trans-theoretical model? Well, in this model there are 5 stages, and those stages are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. Pre-contemplation is the first stage, as you can see from the image. So this stage is where an individual is not ready to change their lifestyle into a healthy lifestyle due to having doubt about whether they have the ability and capability to do so. They are, however, encouraged by others to change, and they are given reasons for changing their lifestyles into more healthier ones. This can be strongly related back to John, because in the second scenario, it states that John's parents are trying to convince him into partaking into exercise activities again in order for him to avoid any chance of becoming obese. This stage can take up to 6 months. Now, the second stage is contemplation. This stage is where an individual is getting ready to engage into a healthy lifestyle in the next few months. They still might have an unhealthy lifestyle at this stage, but they are thinking and considering this change. This stage can take up to 2 years. John's parents may need to be patient for him to start putting things into action. If John is in this stage, he might be considering changing his unhealthy lifestyle, but he will continue with the unhealthy lifestyle, and this can worry his parents. Then the third stage is preparation. This is the stage where the individual is ready to take action and to engage into a healthy lifestyle within the next 30 days. This can include planning on what to do within the exercising activities and how often they should do it to see some major benefits. John may start to consider rejoining swimming lessons, and he'll plan out beforehand how long and how frequent he should start swimming. The fourth stage is action. Now, this is the stage where the exercising activities are taking place. This stage requires hard work from the individual to make this exercising a habit. They should do this by acknowledging the hard work they've done to get to the stage, and also to avoid any people who are influencing unhealthy lifestyles. John will need to make swimming a habit in his life so he doesn't fall back down to the first stage. This will strengthen his commitments. The fifth and final stage is maintenance. Now, this stage applies to individuals who have engaged into healthy lifestyles for several months and are starting to encourage any other people who engage in unhealthy lifestyles to change. This individual must also be prepared to come up against challenges and to feel comfortable to overcome barriers. If John was to reach this stage, he would have to get comfortable with the fact that he will be racing other individuals during swimming, and he'll need to start feeling comfortable with this situation. And now here is the second and final model, which is called the health belief model. In this model, it will attempt to predict health behavior choices. There are 6 components to this health belief model, and they are perceived susceptibility, perceived severity, perceived benefits, perceived barriers, self-efficacy, and cues to action. So we'll go through them one by one. So perceived susceptibility. This component refers to whether the current lifestyle that the individual has will have a negative outcome. Perceived severity is the component that refers to what the consequences of a negative lifestyle will be. Perceived benefits is the component that refers to what can be gained by the individual if they change their lifestyle. Perceived barriers is the component referred to what is stopping the individual from changing their lifestyle. Self-efficacy is the component that refers to whether the individual thinks they can overcome the barriers of changing their lifestyle. And the final one is the cues to action, and this component refers to what or who will help the individual to change their lifestyle. So the first step that John must take is to choose what activity he wants to take up. Well, in this case, he wants to do swimming again. The second step for John is to identify any health problems he may get if he was to stick to his current unhealthy lifestyle. John knows that certain types of heart disease run across his family, and as a result of not exercising. If he takes that into consideration, he'll lower the risk of any type of heart disease. This step would be referred to as the assess your perceived susceptibility stage. The third step for John is for him to take into consideration any consequences of the unhealthy lifestyle. So if he did have a type of heart disease, he'd be at risk of death. This step is referred to as assess your perceived severity. Step 4 for John is to notice what are the advantages of engaging into a healthy lifestyle. Once he starts taking up swimming lessons again, he'll decrease the risk of heart disease, and it'll also boost his self-confidence. This step is referred to as assess your perceived behavior. Step 5 for John is to identify the barriers in his way of changing his lifestyle. This can be down to John's excuses for avoiding exercise, and he needs to put them to one side and focus on nothing else if he is to overcome those barriers. This step is referred to as assess your perceived barriers. The 6th step for John is to make him believe that he has the skill and ability to overcome those barriers, which will result in a change in the lifestyle. He will need support from his parents and siblings, so he'll have enough confidence to change. This step is referred to as increase your self-efficacy. The 7th and final step for John is to have the support that he needs, which will trigger him to engage into a positive lifestyle.